The 10 Reasons Your House is Haunted by Science. There are specific criteria for what we often don't accept at Clariot Noir. Now, we can't emphasize enough that our list by no means disproves the supernatural or suggests we know it all, because far from it. We'll also take this moment to suggest to skeptics that they adopt a less confrontational standpoint with believers. Why? Well, for one, people don't often lie about their experiences, at least not convincingly. Something has usually happened when a person risks looking insane to tell you about it, and whatever the cause, it's frightening. People that experience frightening and traumatic things deserve sensitivity and compassion. The second reason one should be careful with supernatural believers is the function of the belief. We learned this the hard way when a young girl fled one of our lectures on infrasound and what we deemed the impossibility of ghosts. This was before my own vision and when I was young too. Oh, so young. The girl had believed her deceased mother visited her. It wasn't helpful to argue against that. Worse, it was callous to take away a slight comfort to her when there was no other deleterious impact on her health. So, with compassion in mind and not the idea of building a stash of weapons against proponents of the paranormal, we begin our list of causes of the supernatural in quotation marks. Number 1. Carbon monoxide poisoning. A simple gas leak in your home can cause hallucinations and impending feelings of doom. Those exposed often hear things too and feel like they're being watched. Additionally, they can become ill and die. If this sounds at all like your experience or the experiences of someone you know, contact your gas company immediately. They'll inspect and repair if necessary. Number 2. Sleep paralysis. Ever been sinking into sleep, picturing yourselves leaping over hurdles? I have. And suddenly flinch in bed? Spasm even? That's because your body hasn't shut down your muscles yet. A safety precaution to keep you safe while you dream of flying or fighting or whatever. As a teenager, I met a girl with scars all over her face. She got them by going through a window while sleepwalking, apparently. Her brain failed to keep her body paralyzed during sleep. Sometimes, however, this safety precaution works too well. And as a person begins to wake, they find they cannot move. This is the worldwide phenomenon known as sleep paralysis, and it can be terrifying. Human beings have evolved to problem solve our way out of danger, often with fight and or flight responses. But what happens when we can't readily locate a threat? If we feel like something is wrong, like our bodies can't move and we feel like they should be able to, the brain will conjure up a terror to prompt our survival instinct, because it actually doesn't matter if we accurately identify a threat or are mistaken about one. Survival is the goal, and the brain, I figure, takes a better safe than dead approach to the world. So, you awaken and can't move. This isn't right or normal. There is a problem. Naturally, your brain tries to figure it out. It can't. And then things that could contain a problem, like a dark corner of your bedroom or your closet, become the focus. From there, things get worse. People around the world tell of horrors appearing in the dark: old hags, dead people, shadows, and aliens, choking them or pressing on their chests. The combination of paralysis and fear might lead one to hallucinate they are being choked. Your dreams can also imagine a cause for real pain. I once dreamed I was being bitten on my toes by ants. I awoke, and it was my meanest cat. In short, if your weird encounters involves waking from sleep and being paralyzed, well, it's very likely this type of hallucination. Number 3. Pareidolia. A similar function to the whole brain erring on the side of caution thing is pareidolia, better known as seeing faces and sometimes creatures in random markings, clouds, etc. Think about a smiley face. 2 dots with a curved line underneath it. That's all it is. And yet, we have to work pretty hard not to see a face there. The theory here, as I understand it, is recognizing faces in animals was pretty important to survival in the days we used to whiz in the woods. Imagine you're taking said whiz one evening and something you see could possibly maybe be a human or like a tiger. It might not be, but if it is, then it could be dangerous. So your brain says, you know what? it is a person, or it is a tiger. Better stop whizzing and hit the bricks. Sticks? Holy shit, a tiger! You run and live. A little pea covered, but alive. Your brain, knowing it kind of lied to you or your senses, relaxes, knowing it deceived you for a noble reason. Unfortunately, perhaps, we never lost this ability, though some are born without it. And now we see monsters in a bad photograph. Seriously, there are whole Reddit forums dedicated to photos of smoke, bad lighting, and shadows that is just pareidolia. Number 4. Ideomotor effect. Most human beings can't keep their hands perfectly still. Micro movements occur often, and we don't notice. Nobody ever thinks they're the one moving the planchette of a Ouija board, the classic Hasbro board game. And they're right, because everybody is. The ideomotor effect was actually observed in the 1850s, and again studied in 2012. Penn and Teller actually did a fun experiment about it on one of their shows. They blindfolded participants and flipped the board without telling them because it shouldn't matter to the ghost moving the planchette, right? During the seance, the planchette moved to the places where participants would think the yes, no, and letters would be, and they were way off. So, Ouija board stories? No thanks. Not unless nobody is touching the planchette. Number 5. The Troxler effect. Now, this is pretty cool, and genuinely spooky, even if it isn't supernatural. Essentially, your brain cancels out visual stimuli that are repeated too much. If you look this up, you'll find a circle made of purple dots with each dot disappearing in sequence. Focus on the crosshair in the middle, and those dots will all miraculously disappear, and fast. Why does the brain do this? Some speculate it's yet another method of survival, this time related to sanity. Imagine if your brain admitted everything you sense to your conscious self, meaning you noticed every sensation and observation with your full attention all the time. You'd go crazy. Even those with hypervigilance, being really attuned to what your body is sensing, struggle with a host of mental issues. Like sleep paralysis, however, this survival instinct comes with a downside. Though it's more difficult to discover and requires an active focus and will, and, well, a mirror, the Bloody Mary legend asks to darken the room, light candles, and then stare into a mirror while saying her name, Bloody Mary, a lot of times. I've heard as many as 1,000, and as few as 3. Those really committed, the 1K crowd, will see something, and as researchers discovered, that something can be super freaky. Participants in one study saw monsters, the undead, and deceased relatives. But how? The Troxler effect was canceling out repeated visual stimuli from their own face. Moreover, and this is what did it for me when I tried it, staring at one's own reflection for so long produced a disassociative effect, meaning I didn't recognize my reflection as me anymore. It felt like someone had broken into my house. So, stories involving prolonged periods of focused staring, especially into a mirror while scary, are probably not supernatural. Number 6. Infrasound. Our ears pick up on noises great and small. Sometimes so small, we're not fully aware of them. And what does our brain do when it can't identify something, particularly if there's even the tiniest chance it's a threat? It makes it a threat, and delivers all kinds of fight-flight feelings, which generally encourage us to move on for safety's sake. In what sounds like a pretty cruel experiment, at a concert, infrasound was generated using pipe organs. Attendees reported feeling anxious, ill, weird, and all the things scientists love. These noises can also occur naturally from the wind, like maybe in an older house, for instance. But also, infrasound can be generated by machinery, particularly if it's not functioning properly and giving off vibrations. One added tidbit here is that infrasound vibration can also affect our eyes, causing us to see things that aren't there. A dust mote, for example, could be misinterpreted as a gray, whitish blob, similar to the classic Halloween ghost. It isn't always easy to detect infrasound, though many phone apps claim to do just that, but it should be considered before conclusions regarding the paranormal are drawn, especially if you live in a uniquely styled or older house, or if you just have an old ceiling fan. Number 7. Confirmation bias. I had a friend tell me once they could predict what song would be on the radio next. She'd think of the song and voila, it would begin to play. To her, this was evidence of psychic ability. She wasn't pleased when I explained what was actually happening. See, before she'd begun believing in her ability, she probably only had a hunch about it. Still, it seemed to be happening more and more. Her guesses were correct, and she gradually began to forget the times she'd been wrong. No, it wasn't her fault. She'd been driving all these times and thinking about other things. Any thought might be running through your head in such a situation, including a catalog of songs. If a song came and went without coming on the radio, she'd likely forget she was thinking about it at all. But if the two events, thinking about a song, and play on the radio, occurred at the same time, it was enough to mark the occasion as significant, meaning it was remembered. See what she did there? Don't judge her too harshly because humans do this with practically everything, noticing only the details that confirm previously drawn conclusions. So if you move into a house you believe is haunted, there's a better chance you'll interpret otherwise normal events as proof of it. It's why we always ask how long someone has believed in the paranormal. If they answer always, well, then we have some more questions before we'll accept their story. Number 8. Poor short-term recall. The uncanny feeling of having been somewhere new before, maybe in a past life, or doing something the first time, only it isn't. It isn't deja vu. It's just bad short-term memory. Simply put, we go somewhere, we do something, and then kind of forget about it, maybe because we're tired or not paying attention. Then, when we are alert again, our foggy thoughts suggest familiarity, because it should be. It just happened a few seconds ago, and we forgot about it. Number 9. The Barnum-Forer effect. You are a deeply emotional, yet rational person. Does that sound like you? We enter the realm of psychics and horoscopes here. Essentially, the Barnum effect, or Forer effect, or Barnum-Forer effect is the acceptance of incredibly generalized information as true about ourselves. The psychic offers up vague info which the target agrees is accurate, and from there continues supplying more specific information based on other cues like age, gender, etc. It seems like magic, and it kind of is. Why believe someone you just met knows anything about you? We get a fair number of stories beginning with mystics and fortune tellers. We try to be gentle when we tell them they're likely a victim of this effect. Some even apply this effect to themselves and believe they're psychic because they can cold read someone. Make good guesses about a person based on the criteria mentioned above, like age, gender, dress, etc. It's all just very, very general, vague guesses that pretty much applies to everyone, but not in a way that's useful. Number 10. We all believe a little. None of the previous items on this list should embarrass anyone, though, because everyone believes in the supernatural just a little bit, even if they say they don't. People carry good luck charms, avoid breaking mirrors, walking under ladders, and always place their knives blade side down so the fairies don't cut their feet. This is one I was brought up with. Most of these superstitions also just happen to be good practical advice. Broken glass and exposed knife blades can cut us. Going underneath a ladder puts you at risk of getting something dropped on your head. But what about the good luck charm? Athletes and sports fans often have them, and the science says they sort of do enhance performance, though probably not because of magic. So, if it all isn't real, and it's all just nonsense, why do we continue to believe? Because there continues always to be a part of us that wonders, well, what if it is?